Today we're going to be talking about MudRunner and how it relates to SnowRunner, as well as the future of the Runner series, but it might be from a little bit of a different angle than you may have originally thought, especially with the recent reveal of Expeditions, a MudRunner game. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So if you're a member of this community, or you've been around the community for a while now and have looked into a lot of the talking points around the upcoming MudRunner game, Expeditions, you've no doubt seen a lot of the comments that have said things like, the physics of the new game better be more like MudRunner than SnowRunner, or I'm not buying it, or the physics better be like the older games, or I'm not interested. And while I think that is definitely a very reactionary take, I also think that there is it's definitely a valid one to look into, and to look into why people feel that way. And one of the biggest things that jumps out at me right off the bat is if you, for example, look at this MudRunner footage, which was actually recorded not too long ago, as you can still go and play the game, unlike the original spin tires, unless you bought it back in the day. The thing that sticks out to me, especially about the physics, is the way that MudRunner always felt like you were interacting directly with the ground, whereas in SnowRunner, it always felt like there was this invisible layer that you were floating on, as opposed to interacting directly with the surface of the game world. And I know that that might sound a little bit odd to say, but trust me when I say, like, pay attention to the way the tires interact with the ground itself, and you'll start to see what I mean when I say that it feels like there's this little invisible layer between your tires and the ground from time to time. Maybe not visually, but physically it feels like there's an odd disconnect there. Whereas the vehicles in MudRunner always felt like they were weighted into the ground. They felt like they were pushing into the ground and really interacting with that surface in a very meaningful way. And yes, when it comes to the way tires interact with the environment, BeamNG does this better than, frankly, a lot of other games on the market today, and possibly better than all of them, because of course BeamNG is based on a fully customizable simulation model where every single part of the tire interacts with every single part of the environment. However, BeamNG is a totally different animal, and I don't think we can expect to see physics like BeamNG has in the Runner series, and I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think that the Runner series can definitely get close in terms of emulating physics like this, but obviously we're not here to discuss which one's better or worse. It's just more of a level of preference. And I know that what I'm about to say here may annoy some people, but BeamNG is just not as approachable as the Runner series, and it never really has been, because the Runner series is something, especially in recent years with SnowRunner, that people can literally just pick up. You know, they pick it up, they load it up, they, you know, jump into the campaign, and they do their first couple of missions, and then they're like, cool, I want to download a mod map and a couple of trucks, and I'm going to go trail riding. It's a lot more accessible than BeamNG is, because BeamNG, you obviously have to go through some more steps, you have to get a lot more familiar with it, and I know that, again, some people out there are going to say, well, if they can't figure out BeamNG, then this and that and this and that and blah, 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 and I'm like, we're not here to pick at people, okay? But I know that some people could get very charged about this, but hear me out. Easy accessibility to cool vehicles and fun maps has always been one of the things that the Runner series has done really well, especially with SnowRunner, of course, with the inclusion of console mods. And I know that there are some mod creators out there that will have varying opinions about that, and I get it, especially from the standpoint of mod creators that get harassed sometimes about, you know, why is this mod not on console? Why is this mod not on console? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And 100% I understand where that frustration comes from for the mod creators. Even though I myself don't make mods, I understand it from the perspective of someone that makes video content and, you know, hears different types of things in the comments all the time, like, why didn't you make this kind of video? Why didn't you make this? Why didn't you make this? And I'm like, trust me, I get it. But at the same time, I don't think that that makes the level of accessibility that SnowRunner gives people a bad thing. I think actually the level of accessibility genuinely makes the game better. I mean, even now, we see mods on the mod browser that are still, thanks to the console mod browser, receiving thousands of downloads every single day still on individual mods, and the game has been out for over 3 years now. It's absolutely nuts the amount of people that are still on this game, especially on console, and to be honest, that's where a large part of the user base is. However, in terms of the PC player base, the PC player base obviously wants things that are a little bit different from time to time, so let's dive into some of that and how it also relates to the future of the series. And to do that, we actually need to talk about MudRunner again, because from Spin Tires to MudRunner was a huge jump forward for the series, and I mean it was a massive jump. If you played the original Spin Tires, then you'll know how much of a jump Spin Tires to MudRunner was in terms of physics and graphics and all of these things. And SnowRunner, in the opinions of a lot of people, was a jump forward in graphics, but a step backwards in physics. And that's an interesting point to discuss because it's an opinion that a lot of people in the community have. And while you will see people out there saying things like, oh, well, they just dumbed down the physics so it would be easier for the casuals to play the game. That's not, I don't agree with that, because I personally feel like the vehicles in MudRunner were easier to drive than SnowRunner. In fact, I feel like they were easier to control at speed, and not only were they easier to control at speed, they were less bouncy, they slid all over the place a lot less, and the suspension behavior was a lot more realistic feeling, which made everything feel more natural to drive in MudRunner. So why did they end up sacrificing the physics for the sake of graphics? Well, I feel like they had to do one or the other. They were either going to take a step forward on graphics or they were going to take a step forward on physics, and I think it's pretty obvious which one they chose. And that brings me to my point about the next game, Expeditions, a MudRunner game, because I am cautiously optimistic about it, yes, but I do have concerns about it feeling, in terms of physics, the same as SnowRunner, because I don't necessarily, while I don't hate the SnowRunner physics, I don't necessarily want the exact same physics system just carried into a brand new game. I want to see a big generational overhaul like the one we saw from Spin Tires to MudRunner. And again, I am definitely going to reserve my judgment until we see more gameplay and I personally get to get my hands on the new game, because I really, really want to. But at the same time, I think it is important to kind of remain focused on what I want out of the next game and what the community wants out of the next game. And I think the hard part about that too is there's a lot of people that played SnowRunner that did not play the original Spin Tires or MudRunner. And so what you end up with is a little bit of a disconnect, because when you say, well, I would like to see more physics like we had in MudRunner, there's a large portion of the player base of SnowRunner that doesn't know what those physics feel like. And if you've never played the original Spin Tires or MudRunner, trust me when I say, as someone that has played this series basically since its inception, I loved the physics in MudRunner, and I wish we could get something similar to those physics today. But really, what I want to see more than anything else is an announcement from the developers of whether or not this game should be treated as its own standalone game, or is being planned as being treated as its own standalone game, or more as a spin-off and not necessarily a direct continuation of the series itself. Because while it is really, really cool, I don't know if it feels to me like the leap forward that we saw from Spin Tires to MudRunner and MudRunner to SnowRunner. It feels like a almost a bit of an expansion that was big enough to be its own game, and because it was too big to be a DLC, I'm not sure. I could be completely off on that. However, again, let me know what your thoughts and opinions on that in the comments below, because as much as I'm excited for this game, I am not entirely sold yet on whether or not it is the leap forward that we've seen from Spin Tires to MudRunner and MudRunner to SnowRunner. And for all we know, this could actually be a sort of gap fill in between, an even bigger project that they are working on that, could actually be the next, generational leap in the Runner series. That's very possible, but who knows? And don't forget, they still have more SnowRunner DLC to release. The Year 3 pass is not finished out yet, and there is a whole nother expansion yet to come. So don't forget about that either, because there is a lot more in the pipeline for SnowRunner still. However, one thing that I have been noticing a lot of people are excited about is the fact that the game looks like it'll be releasing day one on Steam, as opposed to SnowRunner when it released day one on Epic and then had to wait a really long time to actually get its Steam page released. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions about the Epic Store, and I'll admit the Epic Store is not my personal favorite platform or launcher, but I don't know if it necessarily deserves the massive onslaught of hate that it receives, but at the same time, I will definitely say that I prefer Steam, and so I am glad to see the game already able to be wishlisted over there. But if y'all have any other thoughts and opinions up to this point, then let me know in the comments down below, and if you would like to see more videos like this one, hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on, and I will see y'all next time.